This is your April astrology forecast for 2024. Before I begin, there is a lot to reflect on from February and March. But before I even do that, I just want to take this moment to give thanks to the people of the Lenape land, which I am recording on and where I reside, their ancestors and their descendants, and those who are emerging. I want to send my prayers to the people in Palestine for a permanent and immediate ceasefire and the end of the occupation, free Palestine, free Congo, free Sudan, free the world. And I'm just sending you all love and healing energy. And may you remember who you are, your gifts and your talents and your magic for yourself, first and foremost, that will help you become in alignment with your purpose here on earth. I say this as an Aries. I was born on March 20th at 00 degrees of Aries, 15 minutes into Aries season on the equinox. And I truly am so grateful and fortunate that I was born on such a significant day in the astrological new year and calendar, but also embodying this Aries energy, which is all about the pioneer and all about starting first and having courage and taking risks. And it's something that I really love about myself and that I'm proud about myself. And so I hope with the North Node in Aries, where our souls are moving towards, that you have a little bit of this Aries energy within you. So just to reflect a little bit, I was until my 42nd year in my sixth house perfection year. So if you don't understand what that means, every year in astrology, every new solar return, we have a different house that we are perfecting in, perfecting, right? And perfecting, even there's no such thing as perfection. Such a tangle of words in this Mercury retrograde shadow. But I was in my sixth house year, which is all about service of health, and not just physical health, but mental health, spiritual health, and financial health, because health and wellness is all about wholeness. And I have never been somebody who focused that much on my physical health because I've always had it. But once you don't have it is when you realize how important it is. And so February and March, I was actually very sick because I wasn't taking care of my physical health. I wasn't taking care of my first emotional health, my mental health, and I was experiencing extreme burnout and depression and fatigue. And it was in February where after a trip from the jungle in Mexico on a retreat, nonetheless, after the new moon in Aquarius, the Lunar New Year, my body broke out in hives. And this happens to me whenever I don't take care of my physical body. But the physical body is always a manifestation of something deeper that's going on. So I went to a TCM doctor, a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, and have been working with him for 2 months now. And I love working with traditional Chinese medicine doctors. First of all, he's Korean, so he understands like the Korean culture and of Han and herbs and our food. But the main thing that I was really trying to work with was feelings of guilt and of grief. Those are the two, man, really intense and dark and heavy energies. I realized it was guilt after a dear friend of mine, Yvonne, said that she was going through the same thing of feeling survivor's guilt. And I didn't quite know that that's what that was. But when I further reflected, it was this feeling of guilt because this guilt of being able to live my life and live very comfortably with privilege and getting to pursue my dreams while people all around the world are suffering. And I was holding that in my body and just holding it and not doing what I normally do, which is transmuting. So it was making my body physically sick. And I've been, integrating and releasing. And I just came back from Mexico City, Oaxaca, and Tepoztlan, and worked with a shaman in Tepoztlan and worked with healers there to help me release and purge. And it was a very healing trip. And so I'm saying all of this because, first of all, take care of your physical, mental, and spiritual body, but do that knowing that it will help you have and build resilience towards what we are currently witnessing in the collective, and also to sustain, to have endurance for the long term. And that these transits happen sometimes. For me, like, I knew that I was in this year of focusing on my health, but I like ignored it, pushed it aside. And, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So normally the things that I would get away with, I can't get away with anymore, like partying and drinking and eating carbs and cheese. And now I've been really focusing on eating like actual nutritious food to help build strength, and I'm not cutting anything out, but at least to focus on my feelings and what my feelings are trying to tell me. Because the first thing that my TCM doctor said was like, why are you so sad? Why are you so depressed? And I told him, I said, witnessing a genocide is making me freaking depressed. And he knows exactly what I do, and he's not one of those doctors, thankfully, to say ignore, because we can't ignore, but to also allow my body to process toxins, because our liver, it processes our anger, and our kidneys process our fear. So just as we are consuming content energetically and spiritually, we're also consuming poison. And so we have to have these practices of transmuting and releasing, not ignoring, not bypassing, but knowing that we have to use this energy to transmute and to create something that we want to see in this world. And that was the biggest lesson I learned in February and March. So even though I really, really wanted to muster up the strength to do the March forecast, I just really wanted to focus on my health. But I was tracking the transits and what was happening in the cultural zeitgeist, because this is how we use astrology to, obviously, we have to look at certain archetypes that show up, and not even like, sometimes prediction is a sense of control. And I do believe a part of this practice is to trust in what the universe wants to show you too. Because I think in my early days of astrology, I really used astrology as a way to predict the future, right? Like as a sense of regulating my nervous system, and to help me, because as a child, I always felt like I was out of control. But now I'm using it more as a way to, how can I use this energy to my benefit? How can I use this information to then co-create something differently? Or maybe this is what we need to see, and it's not necessarily going to be savory. It's not necessarily going to be like palatable and like quote unquote good or good news, but maybe I can use this to understand what it's reflecting within inside of me, because any trigger within me is acknowledgement of the truth. Gosh, sometimes it's annoying to be so self-aware. So I wanted to first talk about the lunar eclipse in Libra since that just happened yesterday. I am recording this on Tuesday, March 26, 2024. Even though this is an April forecast, I just wanted to do a little brief overview of what happened so that it gives us some ideas of what to expect in April. So for those of you watching the YouTube version, you'll be able to see the screen, but for the podcasters who are listening, I'll try to do my best to describe what I am looking at here. So the eclipse happened on March 25th in 2024 at 3 a.m. Eastern time. And so a lunar eclipse is when the Earth is in between the sun and the moon, and it's a full moon basically, but eclipses happen near the nodes of fate. And I've talked about eclipses before, so I won't get into like the astronomical meaning and significance behind them. But if you're looking here at the YouTube version, here you'll see the Libra moon at 5 degrees and 7 minutes, and it's opposite the sun in Aries, which is exalted. And I've also spoken about essential dignities in astrology, domicile and exaltations. So, and you'll see the nodes here, the north node at 15 degrees of Aries and the south node at 15 degrees of Libra. Now, we always want to look at the ruler of the moon to give us an extra flavor, an extra glimpse of what this will mean. The ruler of Libra is Venus, and Venus is here at 16 degrees of Pisces. Now, Venus is also exalted in Pisces, which is gorgeous. I mean, if there was any placement in astrology that I am actually kind of jealous of, it's people who have Venus in Pisces. My mom has a Venus in Pisces, and these people just seem magical. These people just like lucky things happen to them, and it's just like they're very mystical, very special people. And so Venus here is hanging out very close to Saturn in Pisces. Mars just ingressed into Pisces, and we have Neptune here in Pisces. So that's a stellium. Stellium means more than, a bunch of planets in one sign in Latin. And so we have Pisces here, which signifies the ending of something. Pisces is about spirituality. It's about unity consciousness. It's a mutable water sign. It's literally like everything, everywhere, all at once. If you have Pisces placements, this is like multiple tabs open kind of thing. I have my Mercury in Pisces, which is why when I'm communicating, I go from the past to the future to the present moment, and I switch between topics, and it drives some people crazy, to be honest with you, but this is just how my brain works. Then we have this Aries stellium, if you include Chiron, which I do in my work. We have an exalted sun in Aries, the north node in Aries. We have Chiron, the wounded healer, here in Aries, and Mercury in Aries, which is in its Mercury pre-shadow. So Aries signifies the beginning. Okay, it is pioneering energy. It is ruled by Mars. It's a cardinal sign. It's like, we're going to do this. We don't have a plan. We are going to do it, and we're going to figure it out later. It's like that viral TikTok. We're going to fuck around and we're going to find out. So there's an area of your chart, which is signified by Pisces, that's ending something, that's trying to incubate something, that's trying to like make the connections in a very like esoteric kind of way. And then you have the Aries portion of your chart, which is like, we're starting this thing. Okay. And it's all being anchored by this Libra moon. Libra moons, okay, there is a shadow aspect to this, which is, and don't come after me if you have a Libra moon, but indecision, right? It's the Two of Swords in the tarot. It's like, I don't know which way to go. I don't know which way to choose. Like both options seem great, or like it's, Libra is the scales, it's balance, it's harmony. It's always trying to weigh both options. Okay. But neutrality is like not a thing. You can't be neutral, especially in this climate right now. But this is a full moon. So something is going to become very clear and you're going to make a decision. And our moon is like our instinctive primal nature. And the moon in a collective mundane chart talks about the people. Okay. So at an individual level, wherever you have Libra, Pisces, Aries in your chart, it's like, okay, I'm leaving the past behind. Something's got to end. Something's got to give. It's not fertile over here. It's not growing anymore. And I need to start this new thing. And I saw that in my own personal life for sure. At a collective level, we as a humanity need to center humanity over profits, over capitalism. And we have to make a decision of how we're all collectively agreeing, because Libra also is justice, social justice. Everybody thinks that Libra is just like all about like the aesthetics and so cute, right? But I find Libra to be very harsh. I have all of my malefics in Libra. And I just think about Saturn's exaltation in Libra. Saturn loves being in Libra, and Saturn likes to cut away. Saturn likes to pull away and be like, no, 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 no. This relationship is not good for me anymore. And we just don't align in our values. And so think back to October 14th, when we had that solar eclipse, that new moon in Libra, which kind of started this like massive beginning to an ending story, because it was a south node eclipse. South node is all about releasing and purging. And I know just from the people that I surround myself with and just observing the collective, a lot of people, their relationships were on rocky ground. If not, people lost a lot of relationships. I know I did. And I've been talking about that for the last like 5 months, crying to you all about it. Okay. Because, because relationships align based on values, right? Venus rules Libra. So just think back now, since October 14th, that was this, culmination. Today on the lunar eclipse in Libra was the culmination of that 6 month story of like where are you going to go with this relationship. Maybe you were having a friendship audit and you were having like just a more keen eye on what your relationships meant to you and what the people in your life were doing. Okay. I don't like to say good and bad in anything in life because there's no such thing. It's just like, where do you want to put your energy into? Where your focus goes, energy flows. So who are the people in your life that you want to flow that energy towards? Okay. So, another thing was right before this eclipse, the moon was making a contact to Pluto in Aquarius in a trine harmonious aspect. So in certain ways, the moon was like, okay, Pluto, I see where the connections that I need to make that are going to make my life worthwhile. I say that because Pluto in Aquarius is all about networks and connections and humanitarianism. And that can go either way, right? Like, again, not good or bad, just there are people out there who believe they're doing the right thing for humanity, but are clearly not. So other things in the news that I noticed, and I'm definitely not going to be able to go over all of them because just so much happened. And but I just thought they were so on brand with the transits that were happening that I noticed. So first of all, okay, I'm going from most recent to, like what I could most recently remember to then going backwards. So yesterday, which was the lunar eclipse in Libra, a lot of stuff came out in the news. That's how you know eclipses be eclipsing. And my best advice for people during an eclipse is to just surrender and witness. There's not much you can do because it's like divine intervention comes, timeline shift, and they just, the universe be doing its thing. And I went to go visit Teotihuacan in Mexico, which is the huge archaeological site an hour from Mexico City, which is like known for the Aztec pyramids. Before the Aztecs, they're not sure because all of those records were burned down. And they regarded the eclipses as very fated events, and they did special rituals during these moments. There is a moon pyramid and a sun pyramid, and I got to go on the equinox on my birthday, and they were doing rituals all day for the sun. But even though the sun temple was the biggest, the moon temple was the one that was at the end of the Avenue of the Dead, Avenida de los Muertos. So for the Aztecs as well, the lunar energies were very central in their living. And that's really the case in most cultures around the world. Like if you think about Easter, Ramadan, and I forget the name of the Persian New Year, but they are all based on the lunar calendar, which is why they change dates every year. So the lunar eclipse in Libra, just remember that, is all about justice and because Saturn's exaltation in Libra, I always think about, again, karma, like karmic retribution. You can only get away with so much for so long based on your ego that it's going to catch up to you. And so yesterday, P. Diddy Sean Combs' homes in Miami and LA were raided. And I just thought that was interesting because, again, these events are not going to happen exactly on the eclipse day, but it's like a portal that opens for 6 months to a year. And there was an eclipse in October 14th, which is a solar eclipse. And Cassie, P. Diddy's ex-girlfriend, came out in November of 2023 of allegations of rape and sexual assault. And so that opened up this 6-month window, right, of potential like building a case against Diddy. And now like the full moon, again, full moons are about completion and seeing something very clearly. And remember what I said about the moon making a contact to Pluto. The Pluto is about excavation and showing kind of like the shadow aspects of something. And I just looked at Diddy's chart, Sean Combs' Diddy chart. And he doesn't have an exact birth time, but what I did find to be interesting is that lunar eclipse that happened in October was hitting his Venus and his Jupiter in Libra almost exactly, because the eclipse happened at 23 degrees, I believe. So it was, which makes me believe that he has major Venus. He might be like a Taurus rising or a Libra rising even, or he might have, something. He's very, like, the Venus is very active in his chart. So obviously, there, like I said, there's no such thing as good or bad. And most people think that Jupiter is only about opportunity and luck and abundance, but Jupiter expands everything. So like whether good or bad, it's going to expand. It's going to exacerbate whatever Jupiter touches. And right here, Venus is exalted in Libra. Again, just because something is exalted or its domicile doesn't make it good, okay? Because I've oftentimes found that my exalted Saturn in Libra is very, very harsh to me. It doesn't always, it's not always like, oh, Laura, we love you, we're going to give you gifts. It often gives me gifts through very difficult lessons. So just because Sean P. Diddy Combs has a Venus in Libra and a Jupiter in Libra, it might have worked for him for a certain amount of time, but justice came down and was like, nah, you're not going to get away with this anymore. So that is something I noticed. And then just recently as well, Catherine, the Duchess of Wales, who is, let's see, I'm just switching charts here. Okay, so Princess of Wales, Catherine, okay, so Stephanie and I of the Millennial Mystics did this whole episode about the royals. So go watch that. I'll try to remember to link it down below. But we predicted that there was going to be some sketchiness on Williams's part, and something is happening within their marriage. And obviously, we can't predict that she was going to be diagnosed with cancer. But on March 22nd of 2024, she almost like forcibly was by the public, because there were so many conspiracy theories, had to come out to say that she had been diagnosed with cancer and is receiving chemotherapy treatment. And I don't know, I'm pretty harsh with the royal family, not the women obviously, but just the way that they treat the women. And like the main priority for the royal family and the firm is to protect the image of the men, King Charles and Prince William. And the women are kind of like thrown off to the wolves. So I very much sympathize with Catherine, Princess of Wales, but she was born on an eclipse. She has her sun at 19 Capricorn, 18, her moon at 18 Cancer, right on the nodes of fate. So again, that eclipse that happened on October 14th was squaring her nodes, and it was squaring her sun and her moon. And you see here, she has Saturn exalted in Libra at the exaltation degree, and she has Pluto at 26 Libra, and she also has Mars in Libra. So this full moon eclipse, she had to communicate. The third house of astrology is all about communication, that she had been going through this for the last couple months. Now, again, like these things don't happen necessarily exactly on the eclipse dates. These are portals, these are like activations. And so I do find it significant that she made this announcement 3 days before the lunar eclipse in Libra, a completion of a story that possibly began last year when people noticed that she was like nowhere to be found. And she has a Cancer moon in the 12th. She was hiding, and the Pluto ingresses into her seventh house of open enemies. I'm sure like it activated her Mercury and her Venus, and she had to like almost forcibly come out and tell people why she had been missing, because of all the conspiracy theories, and some of them were wild. Okay. But I do send her healing energy. Nobody ever wants to have to like go out in public before you're ready. Like that's just terrible. So I hope that she is healing, and that is Miss Catherine. And so another recent headline that came, well, it's not really a headline, but I just thought it was interesting, is Miss J-Lo. Oh, Miss J-Lo. She has, okay, so she has this video going viral, and this happens every so often, right? She has this viral video going out of her, I don't know if it's on her documentary, but she's basically like, I'm Jenny from the Bronx. I'm Jenny from the block, basically. Insinuating that she grew up in the hood. And she did not, by the way. The Bronx is like, it's a it's a borough of New York City, but to just assume that all of the Bronx is like poor is just, come on. Like I think that's what she's trying to do. She's trying to use the Bronx and the block as like inferring that she had it really rough and that she grew up really poor. She grew up middle class. I know people who grew up near her, who went to school with her, and she went to a private school in the Bronx. The Bronx has many different enclaves, some very affluent, mostly middle class. And yes, there are poor neighborhoods, but to imply that you grew up poor, come on, J-Lo. Like people aren't going to come out and like drag you. But why she's doing that is she's trying to be more relatable, because I guess her documentary is not doing well. The things that she's putting out are not doing well. She has a Leo sun with her Mercury here in Leo as well, tightly conjunct. So she has her sun at 1 degree of Leo and her Mercury at 3 degrees of Leo. The shadow aspect of Leo, which I'm sure a lot of you will have a lot to say about Leos, are this need to constantly, like, narcissistically show yourself as like, and what she's kind of doing is like almost trying to portray herself as like she'd been struggling, even though like she's literally not lived in the Bronx for like 30 years of her life. Like she is worth $400 million. She lives in Beverly Hills, like has multiple homes all around the world. Like she's okay. And what I find interesting is that Pluto in Aquarius is exactly opposite her sun and her Mercury. Now, Pluto in Aquarius is going to reveal the shit. Like it again, it's all about excavation, right? And Pluto is going to humble her very quickly, because Leo is this very like royal sign. It's like, I am the star. I am the star of the show. And a lot of famous people have Leo suns and Leo placements. And this is why there's such a huge backlash towards celebrity culture. And there's like discussions now around the downfall of celebrity culture, is because of Pluto's ingress into Aquarius. If you're not for the people are going to drag you at this point. Okay. So let's like keep our eyes on that. And also this lunar eclipse in Libra was directly on her Uranus in Libra at 0 degrees and her Jupiter in Libra at 1 degree. So again, solar eclipses eclipse. They the the Earth is in between the sun and the moon. So like the Earth's shadow is projected onto the moon, which naturally, like in a full moon, you see the light of the moon from the reflection of the sun, right? But like when the luminary is eclipsed, it's like something is literally in our conscious awareness eclipsed. Okay, so just put a pin on this. This might be like the beginning of the end of celebrity culture. And I didn't watch it yet, but there's a documentary that's out about gosh, I just forgot it about the name. It's about like, it's like an expose on like, was it like a TV show with kids and Nickelodeon or something? Gosh, I should have looked it up before I started speaking about this, but with J-Lo and Diddy and this and all the stuff that's going on, yeah, just look out for that. Okay, last but not least, we have to talk about King Charles III. That was my terrible British accent. So on February 5th, 2024, well, I don't know if he announced, but the the announcement came out that he is battling cancer, and a pretty progressed one. That was the day that Mercury was conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. So this is significant because Mercury is announcements. Mercury is the planet of communication. Pluto is a planet all about, it is about death, because Hades is the god of the underworld. And it was squaring his Taurus moon and his North Node in Taurus. So again, we already did a lot of exploration on the royals charts with the millennial mystics, but King Charles has he was also born on eclipse, by the way. So anytime if you're born on an eclipse, the eclipses are going to bring about like a huge story. And he has a Taurus moon at 0 degrees, and his north node in Taurus is 3 degrees in his 10th house of like career, legacy, and the public. So this Mercury Pluto conjunction was exactly squaring his moon, which the moon represents our body, and his north node of fate. It was also opposing his ascendant, which is at 5 degrees of Leo. So just another thing to look out for. And again, I'm not saying this to like fearmonger, like, oh my God, Pluto's gonna square my ascendant or my moon and I'm gonna have Cancer. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when we do these like forecasts, and especially the mundane ones, it's like just look out for what themes arise and what especially like be discerning, right? It's like, why are they sharing this with us now? Because everybody's working for their benefit. Like I said, the royal family is always prioritizing the image of the royal line, like King Charles and William. And I personally predict that William is a Sagittarius rising, and so his whole sign, fourth house, is Pisces. And when he starts to have eclipses there in this fall, I believe Charles might be. Now, I'm not wishing anybody to transition into the other realms, but my prediction is he either passes or he gets really sick, and so William has to take the throne. And that's going to be maybe an unfolding story that starts in the fall. Okay. So now that I got the little update out of the way, let's get into April. And I'm going to share my screen again so you can follow, because my style of astrology is I like to teach so that you can understand how to interpret your chart and like, what does this mean for you? Like, and how do you use it? Because these are all archetypal energies, but it becomes alive through your action, through your integration. Okay. So let's fast forward to now and move this to the first major transit, which, depending on your relationship with Neptune, could be great, could be great. I mean, everything is beautiful right now. Okay, here we go. So the first major transit of April is actually April 1st, which Mercury will station to go retrograde at 6:14 p.m. Eastern time at 27 degrees of Aries, and will be retrograde until April 25th of Aries at 15 degrees. So check your degrees in your Aries house from 15 to 27. That's where the retrograde will pass through. But on April 3rd, this is a very sweet connection between an exalted Venus at 28 degrees of Pisces and Neptune at Pisces. Okay, and I say that this could be sweet, basically like dependent on your relationship with Neptune. So I have a Neptune square my sun, which every astrologer will say is malefic, but I've learned to work with the more malefic expressions of Neptune by tuning into like the things that we don't see. So like vibration in terms of sound, in terms of like waves, like ocean waves, since it is Neptune, the god of the sea, art, something beautiful, right? Because Neptune and Pisces and Venus and Pisces is like, oh my goodness, like everything in life is beautiful. Like looking at the world with rose-colored glasses, being a little delulu for a minute, saying everything's going right, everything is beautiful. It's such a beautiful, lovely aspect. What can you do on this day? I would go to an art museum. I would create some art. Now, art doesn't just have to be painting, of course. It could be writing, it could be writing some poetry, listening to music. I'm somebody that I have a Mercury in Pisces, and I can tune into music in a way that I noticed was different than other people. Like I can hear the background instruments that most people can't attune to. It's a very special gift, people who have Pisces placements. So that's April 3rd. Okay. And then on April 4th, we have the sun conjunct the North Node. Wow. I would definitely pay attention to this day of who enters your life. More specifically, because this is Rahu, the head of the dragon, the North Node, and it's an energy of like focus, determination, and a little obsession, maybe. And the sun can be a solar figure. It can be somebody that, lights up your way and is like, hey, we should do this together. But just notice like who comes into your life. And I say that because the nodes of fate is relational most of the time. But this is a great day. It's a very fated day. And yeah, I would definitely work with this energy in getting out there. And I would definitely get out there. This is Aries season. It's cardinal fire. It's like, come on, got to make stuff happen. You got to take action here. So the next day on April 5th, Venus enters the sign of Aries. Now, this is called this. So when we were talking about Aries being in its domicile in the sign of Libra, which is the sister sign of Aries, when Aries is in the opposite sign, like in Aries, it's like debilitated. Now, I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with the Venus and Aries. I think Venus and Aries, just in the maybe colonial mindset of Venus needing to be this like Venusian, feminine, like Aphrodite coming out of the seashell kind of imagery, is just very like colonial and patriarchal. I've learned that the ancient Mesopotamians and the Zapotec and like most ancient cultures have two versions of Venus. They have duality. So there's like a feminine nocturnal version of Venus, which is like the mother, the caretaker, and then the daytime, the masculine version of Venus, which is like the warrior. Like just think of like Inanna. And so when Venus is, and right now, Venus is in its morning star version, which is the warrior archetype. So I just see Venus and Aries as being fierce and not taking any shit and really focusing on oneself. So don't think of it as like because it's debilitated, there's something wrong. No, I don't think so at all. My Mercury in Pisces is definitely not going to be thinking with my right brain. Wait, hold on. Right brain, left brain. It's not going to think logically. It's not going to think intellectually. It's going to think in like a very mutable, very chaotic way. And I consider my Mercury in Pisces to be one of my favorite placements now because it just doesn't think like everybody else. Anyway, that's my whole spiel on this like whole essential dignities thing. But this is an exciting time for Venus because Venus is going to do what Venus wants to do and focusing on self. Now, focusing on self does not mean that you're selfish. It's just, there needs to be some kind of balance, right? With focusing on, okay, so basically Libra's shadow aspect is people pleasing. And so the North Node and Venus and the Sun and Chiron and Mercury being here is activating that part of you that is like, um, I'm going to do what I'm going to do because I'm being led by spirit and I don't care what people say. I'm sick of people pleasing, period. All right. So then we have April 6th. And we have Venus in Aries, sextile Pluto in Aquarius, which, wow, that is okay. That's power couple energy. That is like sextiles are the aspect of Venus, and Pluto is the planet of power. Now, like I said, there is always two sides of actually multiple sides of a planet. There's like multidimensionality in a planet. So Pluto can obviously bring out the shadows, it can bring out our fears. In the love that we deserve, Venus and Aries. But then once you integrate those shadows, it's like, wow, you can really attract some like power couple energy here. So then on April 8th, this is, first of all, April is a big month. Okay, this is like a big deal month. It could possibly be a life-changing month. I know that's a lot to say. April 8th is the total solar eclipse at 19 degrees and 24 minutes of Aries at 2:20 p.m. Eastern time. So let me fix the timing. Okay. Whew. So here we have the sun and the moon together at 19 degrees. A solar eclipse is essentially a new moon that happens close to the node. So here's the north node at 15 degrees. And we have a packed house of Aries energy. We have Venus as well. We have Chiron also at 19 degrees. So there's something to be said about some inner wounding around our self sovereignty, self-determination. And then we have Mercury. Oh, Mercury at 24 degrees retrograde. Now, again, we look at the ruler of this lunation, and here is Mars. Mars is ruled by Aries. Mars rules Aries. And Mars is currently in Pisces at 13 degrees, conjunct Saturn. It's an applying conjunction at 14 degrees. All right. Yowzes. So, first of all, this is a total solar eclipse. Okay. It's a big deal. And I'm going to go away from the chart for a second to show you hopefully I'll be able to show you these pictures. This eclipse is visible in the United States of America. Okay, hopefully you can see this picture on the YouTube version. But just like in 2017, this total solar eclipse is going through the United States, and the path of the eclipse is through parts of Texas, Oklahoma, St. Louis, Missouri, Ohio, Indianapolis, and I'm just like shouting out the cities and states that I see: Cleveland, Ohio, Buffalo, New York, possibly Montreal, and part of Vermont. So if you see what I'm sharing, hold on, let me make sure that you can actually see this, because this is like a pretty like stunning visual that the 2017 eclipse and the 2024 eclipse is making an X through the USA. Like, the symbolism is just crazy. It's like if there was ever a sign that the US empire is like at the beginning of its end, basically every 250 years, an empire falls, which is a Pluto cycle. And I've spoken about Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, but it wasn't until Pluto in the sign of Aquarius when the American Revolution started and the Declaration of Independence was the thing that kind of like the document that like said to the British Empire, hey, we want to be free because we don't want to pay your heavy taxes when we don't have representation in your government, right? It's exactly what's happening now. We, the people, don't want our tax dollars going to all these crazy things like killing babies and civilians all over the world. We have 750 military bases around the world. All our money, all of our tax dollars go towards our military industrial complex. And meanwhile, here in the United States, our infrastructure has not been updated since World War II. That's the 1950s. Okay. And we could have nice things like healthcare, universal healthcare, and dental, including dental, may I add? Can you hear my resentment? And we can literally eradicate poverty and the houseless problem and literally pump all of the money into us in the United States. But no, it has to go to this military industrial complex. And that's all I'm going to say because, like, come on. Um, we have to powerfully come together as a community, as a collective to organize. That's one thing I'll say about the empires, that they're very well, it's a very well-oiled machine. It's a passive income kind of like settler colonial states all over the world. They're very organized. I'll give them that. And we all have to come together to organize and to bring down this empire because it's going to be we the people. The USA has a Aquarius moon in its natal chart and it's going to be us eventually. And so when I see this eclipse um you know, like X marks the spot on the USA chart, it's very telling. And since 2017, remember what's happened since then. That was during Trump's presidency. That was like after that, it was COVID and people fighting over vaccines, no vaccines, and is COVID real? Is COVID not real? Like the whole United States of America was like very polarized and divided. And the more and more I learn about the existence of this empire, it just should not have existed in the first place. That's just those are my feelings and my thoughts. But if you don't agree with me, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe go to another astrology show, but astrology podcast. But I just see this and I think we're at the beginning of something major in the United States. I mean, this is not even just the beginning. I guess it's been brewing for a while, and the discontentment of many US Americans finally waking up to the scam that they've been feeding us and shoving down our throats. And it's like America, the US American government has radicalized more US Americans, right? Because we're realizing like what we deserve. So that's my little rant on the solar eclipse in Aries. And I'm personally traveling to see it because I think it's a historic moment. And just check your personal placements. Like if you have anything in and around 19 degrees of any of the cardinal signs, this solar eclipse is happening directly opposite my Saturn and my nodes. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So I'm looking out for that, but just be careful. Again, like eclipses are meant to witness and surrender. So that's the eclipse. Let's move on. So here we have, gosh, that was a huge rant. I'm a very passionate Aries. It's just like we deserve so much more than what we're receiving. Gosh. Okay. So on April 10th, Mars in Pisces is conjunct Saturn in Pisces at 14 degrees. Okay, so this is, I'm not going to lie, this is difficult. These are the two malefics coming together, right? And last month, when I spoke about, what was that transit? I think it was Mars. It was maybe Mars, and it was that massive Mars. No, it was okay. It was Mars or Saturn together with maybe Uranus or Pluto. And I was like, I'm not going to lie, this is going to be difficult. Um, and I noticed that in the collective, there was a lot of just like stuff happening. People were really angry, and people are losing hope. And I think this is another moment where a lot of us are going to have a lot of displaced anger and a lot of sorrow and a lot of depression. So sometimes Pisces, especially Saturn in Pisces, can bring up the sense of like feeling lonely and isolated, and just you're like floating out in like the middle of the ocean, and there's no anchor and there's no sight of land. And Mars could be this feeling of like, I'm trying to grasp for something, but everything feels very slippery, right? Um, and so just on this day, just take care and try not to force anything, and just like don't don't put your head in the sand, because I don't like when astrologers say like, oh, this is a really difficult day and just do nothing and stay inside. We have these moments in the celestial bodies to trigger something within us so that we can integrate it and act on it, right? And but I don't mean acting in necessarily just like the Martian way always, but sometimes action can just mean surrendering and trusting and having faith, all of the Pisces things, right? So, like, do you have a prayer practice? Do you have a meditation practice? Do you have a spiritual practice that you can lean on during this time? Because, yeah, this is good. This, I'm not going to lie, this is going to be very difficult. It's not going to be, and you might not even get the answer. That's the thing. Like, Pisces is just like everything, everywhere, all at once. Like, it's like a sense of, is anything that we're doing working? And my answer to you is yes, but sometimes you can't see the answer yet. um the next day, which is April 11th, the sun in Aries is conjunct Mercury retrograde in Aries at 22 degrees. Okay, so this is um a rebirth for Mercury. It's like, okay, some aspect of your Aries chart is like literally going through massive openings and activations here. First with the solar eclipse in Aries on April 8th, and now with this Kazemi moment. And it's just you might have an epiphany this day. You might just be like, oh my God, this is what I need to do. Right. And I say need to do because this is Aries energy. This is like action, taking a risk. So we always love those days. April 17th, we have Venus in Aries conjunct the North Node in Aries. And similarly to what I said about April 4th with the Sun conjunct the North Node, this could be a fated meeting with a potential lover. No, yes, possibly, but again, pay attention to like who comes into your life. And I just bought a new journal here, and I've literally been keeping track of all the dates as I do with my little honeycomb planner. I keep track of everything that happens just so that I can remember. So that is April 17th. On April 19th, Venus and Aries will conjunct Mercury retrograde in Aries at 17 degrees. This is also very cute. So another thing that happens on this day is the sun will enter Taurus, which will begin Taurus season. So in March, we went from Pisces to Aries, and in April, we move from Aries to Taurus. So we go from a cardinal fire sign to a fixed earth sign, where we plant the seeds of our intentions for the astrological new year. Now, Venus and Mercury are really cute. So I really like when planets have interactions with Mercury because Mercury is the messenger. So this could be a nice day to meet up with friends. This could be a great day to send a message to a friend or maybe somebody that you have a romantic interest with. But just remember that it's still retrograde. So you might actually get the final answer once Mercury goes direct following these exact degree points. Okay. So the same day on April 19th, Mars in Pisces will sextile Jupiter in Taurus at 21 degrees. Okay, so let's see here. Mars here at 21 Pisces and Jupiter at 21. Now, Mars is in Jupiter's sign. So, in some ways, whatever Mars is doing in your Pisces house, Mars is the energy of severing and like getting things done, right? In a very Piscean way, but is doing the bidding of Jupiter in Taurus, which is earth sign. So Jupiter is trying to expand, has been trying to expand the Taurus house of your life since May of 2023. And what I love about this is that, and also this is culminating into the big Jupiter Uranus conjunction on the next day, which is April 20th. So it's important to understand like these obviously shorter transits that I'm telling you day by day in the context of these longer transits, which are, Jupiter is a year-long transit through a sign. Saturn is like a 3-year cycle through each sign. Uranus is I can't think of the exact dates, but like longer. I think it's been since 2018 that Uranus has been in Taurus and will enter Gemini next year in 2025. And then we have Neptune, and Neptune's going to enter Aries in 2025. And then Pluto, wait, did I forget one planet? Pluto just entered Aquarius, but is going to be there officially in 2025. So like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the big outer planets, are finishing up their stories in their respective, like, feminine, quote unquote, signs and moving into more masculine expressions. So, like, that is the larger context of the longer transits, while these, like, day to day activations are like enhancing the story. So, let's just go to April 20th. Why not? Since we're here. So, April 20th, we have the biggest conjunction of the year, which is Jupiter and Uranus in the sign of Taurus at 21 degrees. So, your Taurus house is going to get a big surprise because it's Uranus, and Uranus is the planet of like epiphany, awakening, revolution, getting you stuck out of a certain stagnant situation. And it's been trying to do this for a while now. But because Jupiter is here activating Uranus, Jupiter expands everything. And yes, people say Jupiter is the planet of expansion and opportunity of luck, but at the end of the day, it just expands everything. Now, overall, I feel like this is positive. I feel like this is positive, but I can see how I guess like in when I'm thinking about places like Palestine, okay, they are going through a forced starvation through the blockade. This is like exacerbating that because again, Jupiter expands everything that it touches. So my hope is that this conjunction with Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus and Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus right now is in Aries, very close to the North Node, that this is like an unexpected relief for the people in Gaza and like food and aid and all that stuff. That is my hope. But another expression of this could be that obviously, there's a massive famine right now that a lot of people pass away because of it or murdered. Okay. Because you always have to look at two sides of an activation. It's not always positive and it's not always good. But my hope is that we set our intentions for the highest good of all involved and that some aid goes to this area. I mean, that's what I keep thinking about when it comes to this activation because Taurus also rules food. And in Israel's chart, they are Libra rising and their seventh house is Aries. So hopefully, like that means that, with the North Node being in Israel's seventh house, that more focus is on the self sovereignty of Palestine. That's my hope. Another activation on April 19th is Mars in Pisces will sextile Uranus in Taurus at 21 degrees. So, whenever there are multiple conjunctions or like activations happening on the same day, I always look out for and circle it on my calendar because that is a big deal. So not only does the sun move into Taurus, signifying Taurus season, Venus in Aries will conjunct Mercury retrograde in Aries, and also on the same day, Mars and Pisces will sextile Jupiter and Taurus. And then, like I just mentioned, Mars and Pisces will sextile Uranus and Taurus. And then the next day is the big Jupiter and Uranus conjunction in the sign of Taurus. Your Taurus house is being activated. Something is coming about. Something might be blooming, something might be coming into your awareness. So I'm just letting you know on that day because something big is probably going to pop off. And I say pop off or unexpectedly because Uranus is involved, but also, like I mentioned, like Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is making contact with Mercury retrograde. So this might be part of your retrograde story as well, since also Mars and Pisces is involved. Be careful with Mars sextile Uranus. It's a sextile, so it's like a harmonious aspect, but just be careful about getting into accidents, unexpected things happening. Okay, so like I mentioned, the big conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus is happening on April 20th, and then the very next day on April 21st, the sun in Taurus will square Pluto in Aquarius. Okay, so let me share my screen again to show this to our visual listeners, watchers. Here we go. Now, I've spoken about Sun Pluto squares before. They're not the easiest aspects because squares are 90-degree angles. They are conflict activations that make you want to act or they're frustration points. But so basically, the sun is anything that gives us life. It helps us grow things. It is our ego. It is our spirit, our embodiment. Pluto is the lord of the underworld and really is a planet about our fears, our shadows, and we excavate having to go into the shadow realm in order for us to transmute and to reclaim our power. So there's the sun square Pluto is all about, yeah, like facing our fears and looking into the things that maybe we've been repressing, right? If you want to learn about shadow work, look into Carl Jung. And like, you'll know right away what your shadows are by spending time with your family because our shadows come up when we're triggered. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a good trigger because I've been working on my shadows for a while now. Like, anytime you feel like you are being triggered, if you read something and you want to hide away, um, let's say, for example, like, people are calling you out for being silent on the genocide, or people are calling you out that like you're not speaking up and you're triggered by that. Well, why? What does that really say about you? What is that shadow material? Is because um maybe a part of that like resonates within your soul as being true, and it's something that you're afraid to admit or witness. And so it's not easy work. Let me tell you, being spiritually aware and conscious, it's tough because you can't really place blame on other people at a certain point because it's like, oh, I'm being triggered by this. What is this showing me? It's really annoying work, to be honest. Um, but I always take a moment and ask myself, why am I being triggered by this? Is this a matter of me protecting myself and actually creating boundaries because I'm being harmed? Or am I really triggered? But because a part of this is true in my like unconscious self, and it's something that I'm running away from. These are good things to ask during a square, sun square Pluto moment. And it will be definitely impacting your Taurus Aquarius houses. So Aquarius is our like our thoughts, the neural networks that we create, our connections we make in the outer realm, but also, you know, our mind. And Taurus is like the part of us that really wants to hold on, that does not want to change, right? That's why Uranus has been there, because it's like trying to break something open. I know a lot of Taurus placements, Taurus sun, moon, and rising have had the most massive life changes in the last 3 years since 2021, because you had the eclipses, and then you also have Uranus, and now you have Jupiter. And so Pluto is coming to square now to say, hello, are you actually changing? Are you actually looking at your shadows? Are you actually going towards your fears? I went to a Temescal in Tepoztlan, and I this is my second time, and I highly recommend doing this with a shaman, but also with doing Pluto and shadow work, because the first thing the shaman says is to face your fears, and you can't run away from them, because what it is this pre-colonial, pre-Hispanic sweat lodge, and it's very low to the ground, so you have to like crawl in to get there. And basically it's all dark. They close the puerta, which is the door, and the shaman takes you through 4 gates. It's very, very Plutonian. And the shaman is singing these like medicine songs and using herbs to cleanse. And it's pitch black, by the way. And every gate that he or she or they call on a different element. So for me, in my experience, it's been earth, air, water, fire, with water being the most intense. And again, this is just from my experience from the shamans that I have worked with and sat with. And it's literally facing your fear of the dark and also your own stuff. And I highly recommend it. But please work with a shaman, an indigenous one. Okay, so then we have a full moon on April 23rd at 7:48 p.m. Eastern time at 4 degrees and 18 minutes of Scorpio. So let's move the date here. Okay, so this is a full moon in Scorpio. So here we have the moon at, hold on, let me change it to 4 degrees. Please hold, please hold. This is like helping me get over my fear of quiet pauses. Okay, moving to 4 minutes. Okay, that's close enough. So we have the moon here at 4 degrees opposing the sun in Taurus. So all full moons are oppositions between the sister signs. So since it's Taurus season, the full moon will be in the opposite sister sign of Scorpio. The ruler of the moon, which is Scorpio, is Mars. So let's look at what Mars is doing. Mars is still in the sign of Pisces. It has moved past Saturn and is now making an applying conjunction with Neptune and Pisces. So Mars in Pisces is such an interesting energy because Mars is the planet of like action, of severing, of going towards your desires. And Pisces is this mutable water sign. Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn for that reason, because it can make like concrete traction on the earthly plane. It is in its home sign of Scorpio, which is the nocturnal version of Mars, and Aries, which is the diurnal version of Mars. So it's not like Mars can't work within the realm of water because it rules Scorpio. But in Pisces, it's so interesting because if I think Mars in the sign of Scorpio, I think of the animal, the killer whale, the orca, because Mars is very in the sign of Scorpio, like very strategic. It moves underground, you can't see it. It's very stealth. In the sign of Aries, it's like very warrior archetype. It's like we're gonna go and fight this war because this is what we're defending. Now, Pisces is this very like sure, it can be kind of malefic if you don't like the unknown, if you don't like like living in the realm of symbolism and omens, which is where I personally live, because Mars wants to like make really exacting and strategic movements. But if we think of Mars and Pisces, it is going after your dreams and your visions. Okay. If Pisces is like our dream realm and our vision and our faith and our spirituality, this is making like intentional movements in that direction. And so this is actually a really beautiful full moon. I think all lunations are beautiful, even though they could be a little scary. And Mars is answering to Jupiter there in Taurus, which it just left which is moving away, separating from its conjunction to Uranus. And so Jupiter is speaking to Mars in a harmonious aspect of a sextile. So there is something to be said of like, this full moon being like, oh, I'm actually making quite like progress in this one area of my life that I didn't really see before, with Jupiter there in Taurus. It's like maybe before this full moon and, we've had all those eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, it was like, okay, I'm purging, I'm transmuting, and I'm making all this stuff. And I felt like for a lot of people that I know personally in the collective as well, like doing a lot without getting a lot in return, like putting a lot of your like like livelihood on the line, being of service, sacrificing is another key word of Pisces. A lot of people speaking out against genocide, with the Free Palestine movement and being more active, right? And having to sacrifice their livelihood. A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of people lost friends. And it's like, okay, now it's like with this full moon, oh, I see where in certain aspects of my life where I had lost things, where I had sacrificed things, but now I see where I've gained in a lot of areas of my life. And I can testify that that's very true for me. And what I also love about this chart too is that Mercury in retrograde is moving towards the North Node. It's like there's some kind of like maybe awareness of like, this is my destiny, you know, like the more I tune into like what's right and taking a risk and I leap before I'm ready, the universe will always catch me. And Mercury is Hermes, the messenger of the gods. And so in a lot of ways, like Mercury also knows a lot of things and getting downloads from the underworld. And like I also think of this as like, you know, justice for the dead. A lot of people have been murdered, not just recently, but in our whole collective humanity history that we weren't aware of, because a lot of this stuff was happening behind the scenes that now we are waking up to the fact. And a lot of that is having to reconcile with that, right? I'm speaking as a US American, and a lot of the guilt I felt was like, wow, I was living in like my little la la land, not knowing that the US was bombing Iraq and Iran and Syria and you know, all these places around the world. And now that I know, it's like, what am I going to do about it? Because things can't just live in your head. You can't just know that things are wrong and that there's injustice happening in the world, but you have to embody that through living. It's very Taurus. Okay, so that is the full moon in Scorpio. And, you know, Taurus is like embodiment and Scorpio is like non attachment. It is the Taurus Scorpio axis is like what they say Buddha was born under an eclipse in Taurus, I believe. And it's like this idea that like, yes, we are physical humans, but we also have to live in this constant state of non-attachment, which is so difficult, you know? Oh, okay. So, and what I just noticed is that it's making not an exact T square, but Pluto is there at 2 degrees in Aquarius. So a T square is when there's a planet that is squaring on both sides. So Pluto is squaring the moon in Scorpio and also the sun in Taurus. And yeah, that could add a little layer of like, wow, excavation. Like, I didn't realize this. And now I know. Now, what am I going to do about it? So, the final, actually, not the final, on April 29th. So, I'm just going to move this wheel here. 60s. Okay. Oh, and by the way, Stephanie had her baby girl. If you were wondering, she's an Aries, and hopefully we'll get her back on here. Not soon because she deserves a maternity leave, but hopefully in the near future so that she can give you her wild updates. Okay, so April 29th, Venus will move into Taurus, which is a lovely because Venus is at home in domicile in Taurus. So here we go. And joining the little stellium of the Sun in Taurus, Uranus in Taurus, and Jupiter in Taurus. That's very cute for your Taurus house. And on the same day, Mars in Pisces will conjunct Neptune in Pisces at 28 degrees. Okay. So everything that I just said about Mars in Pisces, like now we have a conjunction to Neptune, which is Poseidon, the god of the sea. We had a conjunction of Venus and Neptune earlier this month, which was April 4th at 28 degrees. And so you might want to reflect back on what happened in April 3rd, because that was a sweet aspect, right? But now it's Mars, and Mars gives a different flavor. Where Venus is like, oh, lovey dovey, attraction, especially Venus exalted in Pisces. Mars is giving a little bit of a maybe push or a nudge, like maybe maybe get out of your delulu thinking. Maybe this is too delulu and you need to be like more rooted into the physical realm. I'm just saying that because again, Mars and Neptune are speaking to the Jupiter and Taurus. But maybe it is like I am going to go after my dreams. I am going to go after my vision because while Neptune is like our vision and dream for our life, it's not the dreams we have at nighttime necessarily. Although, if you do have these placements in, say, like your 12th house, it could very well be that you might have active dreams. But this is like the vision we have for our life. It's like vision boarding energy. And then Mars coming here, it's like activating it again. It's like, okay, how much of this is possible? How much of this can we actually accomplish? So then on April 30th, which is the last aspect we will talk about, Mars will move into its domicile in its home sign of Aries. And hold on. I went too far. I went too far. Went too far. There we go. Okay. So since February, we've had these like major stelliums. We've had stelliums in Aquarius and then Pisces, then Aries. And now we have Aries and Taurus. So it's like almost like the universe is like, we're going to work on two areas of your life step by step at a time. And now we have these two big stelliums in Aries, which is all about starting, beginning, pioneering, and then Taurus, which is all about like really focusing on growth and stability. And it's not necessarily for the long term, although it is a fixed earth sign. I consider that to be more Capricorn. Like, what are the structures and systems that we can put in place for the long term, right? But Taurus is really like, I mean, if you think about this time of year, this is May. This is when everything in the northern hemisphere, especially the northeast where I'm from, things start to bloom. Like spring is springing. Things start to feel like alive again. And Taurus very much gives that energy of like, wow, things weren't really dead. Things were just resting. So you might have this feeling like you want to go after and do things because Mars and Aries is very much that energy of like, let's get stuff done. Let's like, you know, let's get things rolling. And anytime Mars in Aries is conjunct my sun, I have a massive headache because Aries rules the head. And so when Mars is in Aries, it is an energy of cutting, severing, conflict. And so again, with everything, there is no good or bad. There is just honoring the multidimensionality of how the planet wants to express in the given house and area of your life that it's trying to do that in. So, like, like when I say with the malefics, you got to give the malefics what they want. So if Mars wants to sever, you have to honor that. If Saturn wants to make you move away from a relationship or isolate you in some way, you need to honor that. If the Taurus stellium is making you feel stagnant, maybe it's just a time to like sit with and witness and honor the stagnation so that you're not co-creating something that is not in alignment. I had a client recently, if you're listening to this, hi. She has a Taurus moon, but she has like all these other placements in her chart where it's very much like go, 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 and we live in a capitalistic society. So we're like trained and conditioned to constantly be on the go, but she felt like she was stagnant in her life. And I said, listen, we are going into this time of some people have these Taurus activations to sit with because you set an intention and your soul is very intelligent. So you set an intention and you keep doing the same thing, and you're not changing what needs to change in order for your intention to grow. So it's almost like the universe is like, no, we're going to stop because you're co-creating against what you intended. So the important part of manifestation, if you will, or co-creation, is when you set an intention and something is not growing or something's not moving, it's the universe telling you to stop and witness what it is about your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions that are not in alignment with the first intention that you set. And don't keep trying to dig up the soil, the seeds that you planted, and trying to check if they've grown, because they are. Whether you know it or not, they are. But if you keep disturbing the soil and not nurturing it and watering it and just doing what you need to do, then you're disrupting the natural cycle of growth, the natural cycle of nature. And I say this all the time because, man, we live in this like late stage capitalist society of like, I want everything now, and we lose trust and we don't have faith. And this is all why we've been in this Pisces season, is to really anchor in. This is why Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, is to anchor in our spirit, our spiritual practices, our faith, in knowing that it's happening when we don't see it, so that when it comes to Taurus season, and we start like really seeing the buds of our intention, that they actually are buds and they're not just like, like we have to be patient. It's very Seven of Pentacles energy in the tarot. It's like you're looking and you're waiting and like, what's taking so long? And it's like divine timing. This is what I tell all my clients. And you have to ask yourself, like, why are you so impatient? Look at that shadow. What is it? What is in the void? What is the void? What is the lack that you're feeling? And that's where you start. So I wish you all such a beautiful April eclipse season. This is such an important time. This eclipse portal of faded endings and beginnings, and also this Aries energy of knowing that you're worthy and knowing what we are all worthy of. And this huge conjunction in Jupiter and Taurus, Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. And I really hope that you are paying attention to your health, and health in all of its aspects: mental, spiritual, emotional, physical. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I will see you all in May. Thank you so much for listening. And if you liked this episode and all of the things that I have to offer, please consider liking, downloading, subscribing, and sharing on Apple and Spotify and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you.